So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the Iconic Wealth series. Conversations on wealth, stewardship, modern money, and the women and men who move early. I'm Hannah Elsey. I'm the founder of the Iconicity Movement and the host of the Iconic Life podcast. And you guys, this space is really about expanding the conversation around what wealth, leadership, freedom, and opportunity can look like for women in this next era. These are conversations that I wish more women had invited me into, that I had been invited to, and that more women now are being invited to. So I went ahead and built my own table and opened up these conversations. These are beautiful conversations around ownership, positioning, access, creating overflow, and co-creating lives that we are wildly in love with while understanding where the world is moving. So whether you are deeply in this world already, or just curious, or just stumbled across this on your feed, welcome. You're in the right place. Let's talk about all of it, okay? Because you guys, I believe deeply that iconic women do not just watch the future happen. We learn, we lead, and we lean in, and we move with intention. So grab your coffee. I've got my coffee this morning, my Americano that my husband made. Grab your tea, water, electrolytes. I've already had mine this morning, whatever it is. But yeah, grab a drink, grab a pencil to take some notes, and let's get into today's conversation. All right. So, all right, we are back. And you guys, today I brought Megan with me. We're going to talk about this. Today's conversation is just going to be so good. And I didn't want to have it alone, right? So I brought back Megan, one of my favorite humans, one of the most genuinely iconic women that I am honored to know. You guys, this woman, she travels the world, right? Like, yeah, travels the world. I think the first time I met her, I met her in Colorado, and then she was going to, I think, Thailand or something. Like, she was going all these different places, and she has not stopped since I met her. Okay. She's built passive revenue streams that actually work. She teaches on wealth and crypto. She has an amazing background, and she is deep in this WeFi space with me, the one that I've been sharing about. So she's not here as a guest that, you know, I'm just interviewing. She is here as someone who is in it, deep in it, right? So, Megan, welcome back. Tell us who you are in your own words. Share a little bit more about yourself with us.
Oh my gosh, you make me sound like such a rock star. Thank you. Thank you. I
You
love
are a rock
this.
star.
Oh man, it takes one to know one, ladies. So from one iconic lady to another. Oh man, well, it is such a pleasure to be here today with you, Hannah. I loved listening to your conversation yesterday. And so I'm excited to get to be a guest again today. So I am Megan Marler, and I am the co-founder of Empress, which is a women's wealth community all around helping women transform their wealth inside out, and also especially within the Web3 space and bringing women in there. And I'm also the creator of the Crypto Diva Challenge, which did actually come from one of those globetrotting experiences that Hannah mentioned. So after we met, I went off to Bali and Thailand and had
Mhm.
an amazing time there. And while I was there, created this challenge. And so I have been in crypto for, I guess, probably maybe it's about 5 years now, a little over maybe, but been exploring this space for a while. And I'm loving what I'm seeing because crypto, I guess you could still say it's perhaps the Wild West, but at the same time, it's actually really taking shape and now it's undeniable. And
Yeah.
financial institutions are taking major notice. In fact, they're not taking notice, they're actually getting into it. And so one of my missions really is to help, especially women, and I've definitely worked with men as well, but to especially help women to get into this ecosystem, this new kind of vehicle for wealth, and to help them to see that it's just another vehicle for wealth. It's nothing really crazy, actually. So we're having some fun, and so I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk here with Hannah today. So let's dive in.
Yep. Real quick, can you hear me? My speaker just cut out, switched. We're good.
I
Okay.
can
Yeah.
hear you. Yeah. I
All
was gonna
right.
say
Beautiful.
we're probably gonna break the internet today because of the weather. So
Right.
I know we're in summer storm season, so we'll see where
We
this takes
are.
us. So hopefully it comes through.
It'll be great. And also because we're just going to be talking about some powerful stuff here. But yeah, so you guys, you see why I brought Megan on, because this is exactly why I wanted to have this conversation with Megan, right? Because she's not just someone who's reading about this stuff. She is in it. She is moving in it, moving on it, moving on programs. And I am I'm honored to be a part of the Empress Club that she has created, her and her partner, and it's incredible. It's incredible. All right, you guys. Well, let's just get into it, shall we, Megan? Because
Yes.
I want to start with something that I think a lot of people don't talk about. And I mentioned a little bit about it yesterday. And if you've been around my circles and the wealth stuff, you guys have heard me talk about this. But it's one of the big reasons that I think this whole conversation matters. Traditional banking, the traditional financial systems, but traditional banking in itself made 1.2 trillion in net income last year, right? From fees, spreads, from a system that was designed not by accident, intentionally, right? To extract value from people using it rather than reward them. It's the old business model, right? Nothing, it just is how it is. That's how the old business model was. And then that's one point we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to talk more about today. But then also, there's over almost 1.5 billion adults in the world that are completely locked out of that old system. No access to credit, no banking services, nothing in the year 2026, right? So, Megan, I kind of get your take on this. When you kind of really understood what was happening inside of like traditional finance and that kind of stuff, how the old system was, what was your kind of reaction or how did you utilize it before?
Okay, so great question. Oh man. Okay, so there's so many things I want to say right now.
Yeah.
And okay, so I guess here, I'll focus on the old system for a second. And then I do want to offer another thought in just a moment because there's really exciting things happening right now. So, the old system, all about extraction, like you just said, Hannah. And so it was about really just like using, kind of extracting from the customer base, right? And very specific in the way that it makes its revenue. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that because, of course, they're absorbing the risk, whatever, they went out and ventured, and took that risk. So,
Mhm.
with this new system, though, I think it's intrigued me. So when I first heard about it, I was curious because my good friend and partner told me about it and she was like, take a look at this. This seems interesting. One of our seven-figure business owners and leaders and stuff reached out
Yeah.
to us and was just like, hey, I can't get this one out of my head. Like, just take a look. And so when I have people that are really successful and who have been immersed in this kind of Web3 world, and I know that they know what they're looking at. When they tell me to take a look at something, like it gets my notice, and I'm like, okay, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And
Same
when I
here.
saw this, I was like, ooh, what is that? Yeah. And so it's like when someone tells you to take a look, they're just like, just look. You're like, okay, all right. And so I was
Yeah.
intrigued and
I'll
I was
get
like,
curious.
ooh, yeah, I'm gonna get curious
Yeah.
with you on this one. And so I took a look and it really started to interest me. And it's funny because
Yeah.
it may not sound like the sexiest project, but at the same time, like when you talk about like decentralized on-chain banking or just banking in general, it doesn't sound very sexy.
No.
But for some reason, I've gotten wildly excited about it. So anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I think no, 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 I love it. No, because yeah, it didn't sound that sexy. That's true, right? Like I shared before, like finance to me was like, ugh, right? Ugh, that was the word, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like I had other things to do that I was busy with taking care of my family, all the things that did not interest me. And it felt like it was too maybe complicated to really get into it. Because when you start getting into it, it's like a whole nother language, right? They have all these different like, how to margins, like what? Um, and yes, so I wasn't really interested in getting into it maybe. Um, or it felt
Yep.
too overwhelming a little bit, right? So I kind of love you said that because
Yep.
you did kind of bring sexy back to crypto for me, and that was great. And it made it interesting that your Crypto Diva challenge, which by the way, I sing its praises and I share with everybody who I meet. If you're interested in getting into crypto and learning, if you're a newbie, that's the way to go. It's so thorough and so easy and accessible and fun, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, so going back to like traditional financing, like that old system, it was created specifically in a way, old business model of making money for the people who, like you said, were taking the risk, building the things, doing the thing, right? Not to benefit you and I, other than as a service that we could utilize, right? And we were like, I know for me, and I'm sure that you could kind of maybe say the same thing, we were raised to trust that system, to feel grateful for access to it, right? But honestly, it wasn't truly meant to serve us. It was created to bring benefits to the people who created it, right? To like, bring profits, right? The system was designed to extract from the clients, us, people using it. And like you mentioned, DeFi, WeFi in particular, is being built on the opposite premise. And that was one of the things that got me so excited when we talk about Web3 things. Like this is what is literally taking the world by storm. I feel like it is changing everything, right? And so, let's talk about, the change in the new system. So I think this is where it kind of gets interesting or started to get more interesting to me. Bitcoin back in the day, right? That started something, right? That was, I would say, the original idea. It was very radical, groundbreaking, maybe somewhat threatening to the old system. Actually, not somewhat. I think it was quite because, if anybody's been around anything with Bitcoin for any length of time, I'm sure you've heard the things like, oh, you're going to go to jail if you use Bitcoin or, for the dark web or whatever, right? Um, but the original idea was that communities should power the network and capture the rewards, which is essentially kind of Web3 things, right? Not the institution only, the people, the clients using it, right? And then decentralized finance or DeFi took it a little bit further and, um, where we don't just paying fees, we can actually own. So I mean, WeFi, sorry, took it. We can actually own the upside, right? We can get yield from it. We can get governance. We can get participation. So the model is flipping. It's that Web3 thing. And I still think like decentralized finance is still a little bit complex. Because still, if you talk about it now, I mean, it's moving at the speed of light. Like every day, new things are happening with governments and corporations and businesses getting involved in crypto and decentralized finance. Like literally almost every day, I see something groundbreaking coming across the news about it. But it's still very complex and very technical, right? Like overwhelming interfaces, confusing terminology, security risks, things like that, or like you know, send the wrong crypto on the wrong network and it's poof into the others, that kind of a thing, right? I've done that. Um, so it can feel a little bit scary sometimes accessing decentralized finance, right? And I know Megan, you obviously you're in this crypto world and you're also in the wealth education space. What did you see happening with women who are specifically trying to access this world? Was that kind of some of your experiences, like women getting overwhelmed by it or losing money on it, like sending into the others, that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely. Oh gosh, I love that you asked that question, Hannah. So, so one of my favorite questions to ask people, usually followed by me introducing myself and saying, "Hey, here's what I do." I help, kind of educate and bring women into the world of crypto and Web3. They're usually the first thing that I hear out of their mouths, when I say, "Okay, I know anything about crypto or whatever," or I even just say what I did. They usually say, "I don't know anything about crypto." And so that's what makes me laugh. They're like, I don't know anything about crypto. And then usually, maybe something like, oh, I know something about like Bitcoin and I have some XRP, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But usually usually it's like, I don't know anything about crypto. And so that's what I've found a lot of is that most people don't know much about crypto. Like they've maybe heard a little bit about the Bitcoin. They've seen the headlines, and kind of like you
Mm,
said, where, we've heard that it's this controversial thing, and that, oh, I could go to jail or like whatever, or that's too risky. It's the Wild West. And I've also found that a lot of people, I think mostly, even the ones that are into crypto, maybe one of the biggest barriers is they just don't know what to do with it. So that's kind of a big
hmm.
thing I find is they just don't know what to do with it.
And
And
that like it just sits in
yeah,
like, oh, I have XRP. It just sits in that little wallet for years.
it kind of sits
I
there.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I had that experience when before I met you. I had purchased some things here and there, right? Some, I don't know. I got some Dogecoin back in the day. I got a little bit of Bitcoin, like here and there. So like, oh, it sounds kind of like, oh, interesting, but didn't know what to do with it because I can't just go out and spend it at the grocery store to buy my groceries at Costco, right? And I wasn't buying anything on the dark web, so whatever. I didn't know what to do with it, that kind of thing. But that gap, I think, the between the promise of what decentralized finance is supposed to be and the actual accessibility of it, that's part of the gap that WeFi is being built to solve and to fix, which I think is one of the things that gets me so excited about it, right? So let's talk
Mhm.
about WeFi specifically, because I want to make sure that everyone watching understands, kind of what this is. And if you're interested, reach out to Megan or I, get more information, okay? Um, So WeFi is the world's first DO banking platform. on-chain technology, on-chain banking, right? Beyond just regular banking, right? Their mission, I think is fairly straightforward, right? It's like transform banking from, well, in I guess in my way of saying it, from just extraction to reward system, right? Making financial wealth and economic opportunity available at this like global scale, right? Um, their goal is to reach the unbanked, right? With like, because you and I, if you've traveled at all, and I know you, Megan, have traveled, and I've traveled as well, but there may not be laptops and whatnot in every home, but there's almost always a smartphone, right? I've seen that in, I would say every level of the world, right? And if you have the ability to access real banking services, the ability to get like a micro loan for a business, and for a woman in a third world country, like that can be life changing, right? Like family changing because they can create wealth. That's one of WeFi's big missions. But they are the world's first banking platform, and for you and I, what that means practically is you get a banking experience that looks and feels familiar because I think all of us have probably logged into the app or the online portal for our bank now, right? Because we're in that phase of most of us don't walk into a bank anymore to do our banking services, right? So they're kind of taking this whole oops, sorry, my Wi-Fi, my Wi-Fi's being weird. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, they're taking making it a banking experience that looks and feels familiar. Something I log into my phone, I can, cash a check, whatever, send money, whatever, but running it on a completely different infrastructure, right? They're running it on the blockchain, be transparent, be efficient, fast, right? And has that Web3 aspect brought into it. So it is designed to reward you and I for participating in it, not just taking from you. So cheaper fees, things like that, you get, rewards for it. And for those of us who are early movers, which is why I got interested in and started working with it, and you as well, is for those of us who are, becoming part of the company now on the ground floor, we get the possibility of benefiting from the company's profits on a global basis, right? Does that make sense? Megan, how do you explain WeFi to someone who's never heard of banking before? How would you say it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So before I get into what I would say about Wi-Fi too, I want to put this out there for everybody. So for those of you who like to look, finance and everything and kind of follow the news and everything in the business world, well, yesterday and today are pretty big in that SpaceX just released their IPO, right? So there's some massive stuff happening in the world. And
Yeah.
that one's huge in and of itself, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Nobody hardly knows about Wi-Fi. And that's what makes me laugh. And so here we're talking, like SpaceX, one of massive company, and I love it by the way. And I'm super excited. Like me and my fiance have been like, when are they releasing the IPO? Like, oh my gosh, like we've been like tracking this whole SpaceX thing. And so we've been very excited. And it's funny because as I was sitting into the getting ready for this conversation today, Hannah, and I was like, "Pff," it makes me laugh. Like hardly anybody, no, just about nobody knows about Wi-Fi. Now, the founder of WeFi, so or at least, on the board, like, one of the people that really started it and, kind of paved the way for this. So Reeve Collins, the co-founder of Tether, USDT, our
Hmm.
stablecoin, the
Hmm.
most massive stablecoin in the world. So, he's on the board of this and stuff, but he actually went live on CoinDesk on Wall Street the other week. And I was like, okay, this is actually starting to go somewhere. So I was like, so people like pay attention. So yeah,
Yeah.
SpaceX is huge and awesome. Well, this is also huge. And so that's why I'm like, all right, so let's take a look. So the way I would explain it, I would actually step a little bit back for a moment. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the internet and, banks and stuff. So Hannah mentioned the evolution of, coming up into Web3. So to go back to Web 1 was really read only. And so you couldn't really do much with it. It was just kind of information sitting there on the server that you would just read and valuable and revolutionary in its own way because of course it connected us in a way and so we're like, oh, we can like look at information and stuff. Web 2, then the next step are like these big platforms like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, like think these guys and stuff where it's like kind of us
Social
consuming.
media. Yeah.
social media, like things where we can like purchase, I mean, even Amazon, like a lot of things where we can consume and in a sense, they
Mhm.
can extract from us. Web3 as kind of the next iteration, which is really, built on blockchain. And so if you look at that, then that's about ownership, which
Yeah.
that really changes the game. So then that also kind of then brings up the idea of centralization versus decentralization. So centralization, talking about more like, say, like government regulators, like the large bodies governing and kind of controlling how things go. So think banks and everything, the extraction from customers, all that. That's on the centralized side. We have the decentralized side, though, crypto, the Wild West, right? Which is truly can truly be crazy. Like Hannah said, some of your money might go poof into the ethers, and we don't want that. Like that's kind of scary. I've definitely lost, some money to the ethers and to the
Yeah.
crypto gods, as we say, and it's not fun.
No.
So you've got these two worlds. So we're in this new space. So the Web3 space is all about that ownership. And so then now to bring WeFi into the mix and to talk about what is WeFi. Well, WeFi, you might say, is the bridge between those centralized and decentralized worlds.
Yeah.
So WeFi, which Hannah said, and is correct. So decentralized on-chain banking. So that's basically taking banks from that kind of read-only, consumption model and stuff from Web 2, and it's the bridge to Web 3. So it's really bridging that centralized, like where you don't really access your stuff, you're just kind of accessing it through the gatekeepers, the institutions, which has had it's had its benefits and stuff, right? But they're
Mhm.
still gatekeepers. And so that can make it really difficult, and it sets up a whole bunch of rules and qualifications for allowing you to get to your money and all that, right?
Yeah,
And so
because
then if
you
you
kept.
come to,
Oh,
yeah, you
sorry.
can't always access. No, no, you're perfect. You're perfect. I know. And we still got, we're breaking the internet here because this is groundbreaking stuff. But it's like, but Web3 and everything is all about your ownership, right? And you coming in and taking control and stuff of your finances. And so WeFi really is that bridge, and it allows you to basically control your wealth a lot more easily. But what's even bigger about WeFi is that infrastructure piece being that bridge. And that's why we're saying to pay attention.
Yeah.
So anyway, but let's get back at it, Hannah. And I'm curious what your thoughts are and where you'd like to go next. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's, one of the big things to know about WeFi is that it's really a bridge. So yes, it's decentralized on-chain banking, which may not sound overly sexy, but when you start to think about what it's actually doing and what it kind of symbolizes and what it is, that's when I think it gets to be a little bit more exciting. So as a bridge, then you can start to see the importance of it.
Yeah, very exciting actually. Because again, I kind of leaned in because I was like, oh, decentralized finance and the ability, because you mentioned something about like Web 2, because I think people get a little bit confused between Web 2 and Web 3, because like, oh, well, they don't understand the difference between that because for them, it's like, oh, well, I log into my account on Facebook or on Instagram or TikTok or whatever my accounts. Well, I already own that. No, you actually don't own any of that, right? That's the distinction right there. You are making an access point on whoever's, you know, platform, but you don't actually own any of that. And yeah, you may get like let's talk with banks. Like if I open up an account, they may give me some kind of like, oh, here's a, cash back reward, a couple $100 if you, that, or if you refer a friend, you might get a little bit something here and there from, wherever you're shopping, or, like you have these reward points, or like, Starbucks, stars, little, right? For how much money you spend, you earn some points or some free things, and it makes us all happy and feel good when we get our little free, latte. However, that's still Web 2 things, right? We're still accessing and we're still profiting that company completely, who are and you're making, billions, billions, maybe more, right? Which is fine. That's the old business model. What I love and want to access is the ability to create wealth without having to be a major corporation, or have my own private, trust fund or hedge fund that I can, as little old me can create wealth by accessing and being a part of a big corporation, right? So like that's kind of what WeFi is offering the community in this Web3 kind of work. It's like if you become part of it now, they're going to give us you get part of the benefit of what the company is creating, and that's super exciting as someone who's trying to build wealth. But then also accessing it, right? You own it, is your money. You don't have to like um Like if I wanted to go in and take out, $10,000, I have to tell my bank why I'm removing that money, and it can take a couple days to get that money sent, right? I don't know if you've ever tried to move big amounts of money or close down an account, whatever. Like you have to like give a reason for it, and it's like, wow, it's my money. That feels a little bit rude, but it's because we don't actually own it, right? So this is the decentralized finance kind of removes that piece. It is yours, and when it's on a blockchain, it's very transparent. You know exactly where it's going, where it's coming from, et cetera, and it doesn't take days. It can be settled in minutes, right? So anyway, the infrastructure is changing, and WeFi is bridging the new infrastructure and creating it. And that's the exciting part, is being a part of that infrastructure and benefiting from it. So pretty exciting. And okay, so I always like to share my little Apple story here because it kind of, for me and people I've shared with, it kind of made it click as far as to like what Web3 is and why it being in something early in this but thing kind of changes everything for us, right? So the story came to me one day when I was kind of thinking about WeFi and how to explain it to somebody, and WeFi and Web3, right? So quick story, you guys. I want you to just imagine with me, right? Wherever you're at right now, just kind of like put your little thinking cap on, your imagination cap. Imagine you're at home and your friend drops by. This is not just any friend of yours. This is your friend who is like a foodie, who enters like food competitions and loves them and wins them, right? Like those like Food Network challenges, wins all the time, has like the pattern down for how to get blue ribbons, prize checks, that person, right? They've done it before. They've been the champion for multiple different challenges, and you love them. But that's their thing. This is what they do. They're like a genius at this kind of thing, right? So your friend's there just hanging out with you, and as she's about to go, she sees that you have a bag of yummy apples on the counter that you had bought that morning from the grocery store. Okay, and she asks, "Hey, can I grab a bag of those apples? I forgot that, I'm entering a apple pie championship, and I don't have time to get to the store before I have to go make this pie. If you let me borrow this bag of apples, I will go to the store at the end of the week and I'll bring you 5 bags of apples back to replace the one that you gave me today." Of course, you say yes, obviously, that's your friend. And hey, 1 bag of apples turning into 5, that's a win-win, right? That's a great exchange. And yeah, sure, you can help your friend and you get a benefit from it. Cool. And your kids love these apples, you love these apples. Great, right? But then as she's going out the door, this friend of yours turns around and says, "You know what? By the way, when my pie wins that $100,000 prize, because I know it's going to, I have the best recipe and I know how to do this, I'm going to give you a percentage of those winnings. Let's say $10,000 because you let me use your bag of apples today." Now you're standing there with your mouth dropped open wide, thinking, wait, what? I just gave you a bag of my apples that I've got. You're already replacing that with 5 bags of apples. And now you're giving me a share of the winnings of the prize that you're going to get for making the pie with the apples that I gave you. I didn't have to bake anything. I didn't have to go out and enter this championship. I simply placed my apples in the right hands. Does that make sense? So, you guys, it's not about the apples, right? Obviously. But most of us as consumers, as Web2, we buy our apples and we consume them, right? A few people learn how to place them wisely and multiply those apples. Okay. That's what we're talking about today. Not simply consuming our apples, our money, right? But positioning our apples, money, in the hands of people who are able to do something big with it and then benefiting from it. Not only just multiplying it, but also benefiting in a massive, massive way. Okay. So you and I are not building the new financial infrastructure. WeFi is, right? They're building the bridge. You and I are simply positioning ourselves within that infrastructure. We're giving them a bag of apples, right? And doing it now, doing it early when they need those apples, right? And need is actually kind of a strong word because I don't know if they actually need it. They're just doing this because their goal is to benefit Web3. But when it grows, which it is, every day new things are coming. I mean, we've been in this for not even a year, you and I, and like massive, massive changes and more keep happening, right? But we are participating. We're not just watching this bridge being built, right? Because I don't know about you and I, Megan, you can maybe speak on this. You've watched a lot of opportunities move through the space. You've been in this, teaching about wealth education and with your Empress Club and everything. What made WeFi be the one that you said yes to?
Well, so WeFi stuck out to me because of basically the massive problem it addressed. And so, what I look for, oftentimes with a project or, a wealth building opportunity or something. So, there's a lot of them that are out there. There's so many ways to generate wealth and everything. But I think the most significant ones, such as with this, with WeFi, again, it was answering that infrastructure problem and it was doing
Mm,
something on a really large scale. So I like to look for things that have a practical utility to them, which I think is probably why things like XRP speaks to people because it's a banking token. And so, it's like speaking again to that financial sphere, so smart contracts and all that. Um, and WeFi kind of it was basically the same thing where I was like, oh, banking. Oh, banking. That's, multi-trillion dollar industry there. Okay, so if we can solve problems with that, then we
right.
should probably pay attention. And so, yeah, just the size of what it was doing and saying it was going to do. And honestly, it does have the leadership to accomplish that. But yeah, that's what
Yeah.
stuck out. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
I agree with you. That was very similar reasons why I drew it. When I'm looking at anything, it is, yeah, the utility of it. Like, is it something that is needed in the mass market?
mhm,
And yes, banking, remittance, all the things, those are things that are used every single day, but on a mass scale. And then also, yeah, who is behind it? Because for
yeah.
me, that old saying, you don't bet on the horse, you bet on the jockey, right?
Mhm,
And I mean, I've invested in many, many opportunities throughout the years, and um, some with the best of intentions, but maybe they were new to this, what they were doing, or they, whatever, what have you, right? But I've learned to be a little bit more discerning around where I place my investments and my money, right? Because one, you want it to be legit and real, and two, you want to be not necessarily a newbie. Does that make sense? Am I saying that right? So yeah, for me, the co-founder of WeFi being Reeve Collins, him being one of those co-founders was honestly one of the biggest reasons that I jumped on this because Reeve Collins, you guys, Megan's talked about him a little bit, but look him up if you don't know. This man, he is one who co-founded Tether. They invented the first stablecoin, right? And it's the like you said, the most stable, largest stable coin as of now. But they invented stable Tether in 2014, I believe, right? Putting the US dollar on the blockchain for the very first time. Because before that, crypto was too volatile for everyday use, right? I mean, you guys, if you've watched anything with crypto, you've seen, Bitcoin going up and down, like giving people whiplash, right? But putting the US dollar on the blockchain with a stable coin, that aspect, it solved that problem, right? And you guys, Tether is now has over $170 billion in circulation and processed over 19 trillion in transactions in a year. This company was not, it's less than 20 years old, right? It's less than 15 years old. Let's go there. And already, those kind of numbers, right? Like that's some serious, serious things, right? Changed the world, right? And there's other amazing people on the board as well, right? Like a former CEO of the National Bank of Abu Dhabi. They're the management builder or builder management behind Wise, right? Like, and I could go on and on. Um, these are people who already built or been very influential in the old financial system, and they've decided to build this new one. And I don't know about you, but again, you bet on the jockey, not the horse. And when the people who run the old financial system start joining the new one or creating a new one, for me, that tells us a lot that we need to know about where things are going.
mhm.
So, like for you and I, like, you know, I always like to ask a question. If you had been offered a chance to be a part of Facebook when it was just, a Harvard student directory, would you have invested in that? Would you have joined in with that? I don't know, right? How about Amazon, right? When Jeff Bezos was running it from his garage, or Uber, right? Before I know you, Megan, you like to call WeFi the Uber of banking, and I actually think that's a great analogy for it. Or like
Mhm.
Airbnb, right? Before they disrupted hotels, right? Of course, you would have knowing now what you know about it, right? All of us would have. But I don't know about you. I wasn't offered that opportunity, right? Um, But so I will say this, as of today, as you're listening to this, you can no longer say that nobody showed you the ground floor of the world's first decentralized on-chain banking platform. This is your window. And yeah, I mean, the entry point is pretty simple, actually, right? You don't have to go buy like a hardware company, a place to, like a bunch of, servers to start farming things, this kind of thing. You literally just need a phone and a decision to position yourself inside something early, right? Like reach out to me and Megan and we can help you get started. It's not, you don't have to be a crypto expert or anything like that. But I can tell you is that there are people on my team, myself included, when I look at where I'm at, what I could have done, right? But it doesn't matter. We're not behind, we're not late. But there are people on my team who looked at this, understood what they're looking at, and then moved quickly and decisively. And the results we are seeing are the kind that, like I said, it makes us wish we had moved sooner, right? That we known about this, even earlier. But you guys, like I said, the details of how it works, what that looks like, what the potential is, that's a conversation that we have more one-on-one. But what I will say for myself is that I've positioned myself and my family inside of this in a way that I feel really, really good about. Very, very, very excited about the future when I look at it. And I am actively looking for people who are ready to understand it at that level and make their own informed decision, right? I've said before, I'm looking for 1,000 leaders in my community, on my team, right? So, Megan, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. Well, a few final thoughts, I guess, so that we don't take too much more time. But yeah, what I would say is get curious about it and always do your own research. So don't just
Yep.
take what we're saying, for
Yep.
whatever. I'd say go out there and find out for yourself. And so whether that's getting, on a call with us and we can always direct you to where, straight from the horse's mouth so we can get you to calls and stuff where it is coming from the leaders themselves, about what is going on here so that then you can kind of put two and two together and figure out if this is something you want to be part of. So that's kind of number one. And then to speak to what you said, Hannah, about, you're not too late. She's right. You're not too late. However, that is changing. And so
Yeah,
I
that's
would
true.
say, don't,
That's
yeah,
true.
don't wait too long. Yeah, I will say learn as much as you can right now. And then, if anything, just hop in or something. Because it is changing and people are starting to take notice. Like I
Yeah.
said, Reeve Collins, who he did recently go live on CoinDesk on Wall Street, which that's
Hmm.
that's not nothing. And so if Wall Street's starting to take notice and larger leaders, I mean, there's so many different partnerships being made and a lot of other players in the industry are wanting to take advantage of this. And so
Yeah.
when larger institutions start to take notice, you start to see some real movement. And so again, I would say don't wait on it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and start immersing yourself in this because this is actually becoming the future of banking in many ways. Like Hannah said, stable coins. So a stable coin is basically crypto that pegs itself to the dollar. So that's what USDT is. And they are actually the largest holder of gold in the world. So USDT is absolutely backed by gold, which not even our fiat, the US dollar fiat can say that. So we don't have that.
True story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so stablecoins are huge here. Yeah. And so if the founder of stablecoin is doing this, you take notice of the leadership that's involved in this.
Yeah.
And so the size and scale of what's going on here, and I do like to call it the Uber of banking. So think about Uber and Airbnb, where both of those platforms were so revolutionary because what Uber did was they didn't go out and buy a whole bunch of cars. They didn't, go and buy a bunch of taxis, limos, whatever. But what they did do is create the technology that allowed to connect users who needed a ride with people who have a ride to give. And it was the best of everything, right? People are able to get rides easily. I mean, I used Uber the other day when I came back from the airport.
Yeah.
Um, I use it and I love it. It's great. And I use
Me too.
Airbnb just about all the time, when I travel. And so again, it was, an Airbnb connecting people who had homes or empty rooms or whatever with people who need a room, or a place to stay.
Yep.
And so being the creator of that technology, that platform that brings people together, that's where the money's at, right? That's where the true opportunity is. And so with WeFi,
Right.
again, acting as that bridge between, that decentralized world and centralized world, that's something
Exactly.
to that's something to take a look at.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say is take a look, don't get left behind because it's not about the FOMO, it's not about the crypto, whatever, blah, like we don't want to make people
Yeah.
crazy. but at the same time, do take notice because good opportunities don't come along all the time. I mean, there are always
Right.
opportunities, but I will say things like this where it's
On
this
this
large of
level.
scale
Yeah,
on this level.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, like kind of that Amazon size like thing. Because we are at a crossroads right now, I feel like, or maybe not a crossroads, but we're at a pivot point where it's like things are kind of exploding and everything, like AI, obviously, right? That comes into it. Like we're seeing some
right.
massive changes with that. And then with all these different banks and everything, and even governments talking about issuing their own stable coins. Again, crypto is undeniable. It's not going anywhere. And so more and more
It is not.
institutions are just saying, all right, we got to get into this. So yeah, I say take notice and start learning about it and get yourself in there.
100%, right? Yeah, and like you said, do your research and whatnot, but because you are your own sovereign in this, right? You're your own financial sovereign. You're your own. This is your own. I say iconic life. You get to create your own, however that looks for you, right? So yeah, you definitely got to take responsibility for your own thing. But if you are at all interested or serious about building wealth, true wealth that can literally change your family and change what, like this is an opportunity to get curious around and do some research on. And then you get to decide if it's for you or not, right? That's always the thing. Like you said, it's definitely, but if you've heard about it, it's a good thing to get curious and actually look at it and then decide, right? Because like you said, that it is definitely the opportunity is there, but it's not going to be there for much longer, right? It will move on by. That wave will pass.
Hmm. Yep.
And then I think, like you said, that bridge that they're building, that bigger picture that I like to think about a lot, because there are a lot of ways in which I'm benefiting from being a part of, WeFi, but that bigger picture, right? There's, over $100 billion in decentralized finance right now, right? There's like somewhere over 560 plus million global crypto owners, right? Um, and adoption is happening 20% faster than the internet did at the same stage. Did you guys know that? Because honestly, when you look at the percentage, crypto is still only like I think in the 10 to 15 percentile of, humans on the earth who are using it, right? But that's where that sweet spot happens when things start to become household and global market, right? Like, so we're in that like fast adoption stage right now. And the projection is like by 2030, I think, is that on-chain finance is projected to handle at least 10% of global GDP. Yeah, try to say that. Which, again, those are not small numbers, number one. But that you hear those numbers, like we're still in the early stage, right? So this is the opportunity to look at it and make a decision before it becomes 50%, 80% of the world is using it. Does that make sense? Because then the opportunity is not there as much anymore. But yeah, both let's see, like big consulting groups, big like people who do research, like the World Economic Forum, all these, they all say like the shift from traditional finance to decentralized finance is inevitable, right? Not maybe, it's inevitable. The only question, and WeFi actually puts it this way, is whether you're going to be an observer or a participant, right? So yeah, I don't know. I love this. Like every major wealth transfer in history had an early window, right? Every major switch, like you mentioned, like Uber and Airbnb, AI, right? All like these are current enough that all of us can kind of remember when we first heard about it or when we start like, did it make sense to you when you first heard about um well, AI for sure, right? It's like, what? What is that? Or like, oh, I could rent a home, like someone's home. Why would I do that? That was kind of odd. Or like, oh, I could ride in someone's personal car as instead of a taxi. Like, I remember that was kind of a strange concept, right? When I first heard about it. But like you said, now we use it all the time. It's just
Mhm.
our normal part of way of doing things, of traveling, of utilizing us, right? I can't think of the last time I used a taxi. I use Uber or Lyft, right? Like, yeah. So anyway, the people who get curious who and learn and lean in and understand what is happening while it was still chaotic and that concept was kind of like, huh? Not when it was such an obvious choice. We are the ones who are going to, and historically, those are the ones who built generational advantage from it, right? And that's what I'm here to build. So, like I said, the only question is whether you're going to just be an observer hearing about this on this, podcast or live, wherever you're hearing it from, or if you're going to be a participant and benefit you and your family. So, as we are closing out this conversation today, and it's been so good, and I'm so excited to. We have episode 4 coming out tomorrow, actually. So tune in again around the same time and bring your questions, bring your thoughts. I want to, I'd love to make this a conversation. And Megan and I both love like let's have a juicy conversation about this. This is not just us talking at you. We want you to bring your questions and your thoughts and your perspectives as well. So, yeah, bring those
Even if you
questions.
think it
We'll,
stinks, like we want to hear about it.
yeah,
Seriously, like we are
yeah,
here for the conversation.
exactly,
And so it's like, yeah, like over in
exactly.
Crypto Diva the other week, I had a person be like, "Is crypto even good? Is this doing good things for the world?" And I honestly loved the question because I was like, "Yes, like so
Yeah.
we welcome your questions. Please bring them."
Bring it. Yeah, exactly. I love it, right? So yeah, bring those questions. Let's chat. Let's have a conversation. This is the stuff of life, right? It's like having these real like conversations. This is the authenticity of it. Like this is what I'd love to do in my community, which brings me to that. Like this is moving into these things, moving into something new, creating, new wealth, building, accessing new financial spaces and what feels like the frontier, right? The wild frontier. It requires a version of us who is going to show up differently, right? Maybe differently than you've ever done before, right? The identity has to match the wealth moves. If you're going to be someone who's access or manage or stewarding, as I like to say, stewarding, large amounts of money and things like that, you need to be the version of you who shows up differently than someone who is maybe living paycheck to paycheck or doesn't know how to, doesn't even like think about money or that kind of stuff, right? Otherwise, you get in, you talk yourself right back out and you end up right where you were, back where you were, right? You second guess, you shrink when things get uncertain, right? I know, Megan, you watch a lot of women step into these spaces and try things out, maybe seen some, cha-cha back and forth movement. Was that two steps forward, one step back, that kind of thing. But this is why I built one of the reasons why I built Iconic 365, this offer that I've got to address this falling back into our old patterns of ways of doing things. Because, I keep watching women who get curious, right, about their next levels, about wealth, right, about, all the different things, and then drift back to our old self, right? And it's not because we lack intelligence or opportunity, because I'm talking about myself here too, right? It's because that new identity didn't stabilize. Our iconic version of ourselves, that iconic life that we were building, right, didn't stabilize as normal. And that neocortex, that, reptilian brain, like all that, our nervous system wants to pull us back into homeostasis, right? So I created Iconic 365 as a daily proximity environment, voice led, identity first. Just a few minutes every day. It's not a course, right? It is every day for 365 days. It's a room online where you get to live and where becoming your new identity stops being just a moment that then drifts away. It is daily activations that recalibrate you back to this new version of you, right? Before you drift. So, and we're going to have like monthly themes. Like June is, I'm so excited. It's reclaimed, just returning home to ourselves, our voice, our standards, our truth, remembering who we've been created to be, right? But it's a private community for women who are in motion and refusing to go backwards or fall back into our old ways. We are calibrating to our new levels and beyond, not falling back, right? So, like I said, what we're talking about now, different wealth things like WeFi. WeFi is the vehicle, right, that we're talking about today. Iconic 365 is the environment where you become and maintain the woman who actually drives that vehicle. Does that make sense? Who doesn't talk herself out of like her forward motion in a couple weeks and go back to regular things because life just gets loud. So, like I said, this is a beautiful space for visionary women who are serious about moving forward in their lives, right? Um, we start June 1st. Right now, when you join, you get the best price it's ever going to be. June 1st, it's going to go up significantly, right? This is the window. When you talk about windows of opportunity, then it's going to close June 1st. So if you're curious or interested in like really like being in a community of women who are linking arms and we're going fast and far and calibrating our new levels as normal and keep on going, this is the space to be, right? Again, it's just little daily voice notes and drops that are going to help you keep you focused. Um, and it's going to be so beautiful and so amazing. And I can't wait. I know, Megan, you're in there. I'm so excited that you're in there. I've got women from around the world. Like, I'm so excited to have, the most amazing women in this space. But we're going to do a whole year together, right? Celebrating one another and calibrating to our new levels and, sharing our challenges and like linking arms and doing this in community. So I will put the sign up link for that in the comments. Um, but yeah, I just want to kind of, land us right here. If you have been watching this Iconic Wealth series, this volume 2 that we've been doing. Maybe you even came to volume 1 and something's been kind of like stirring and you've been a little bit curious. You guys, that's not an accident. Yeah, that's your next level knocking. That's discernment. Pay attention to that. Follow that spark, right? I would encourage you to move, not someday, not when you have all the information or when life gets easier. Do it now, right? um, Reach out to us about the wealth projects. We find particular, like I said, that opportunity is closing, but it's still there now, right? But get in, right? It's not difficult. We can be right there with you to help you walk through it. And this is the most exciting time to be a part of it. And then number two, Iconic 365. Join us. Join us before June 1st, right? Because I said that founder member pricing, it's going to change, it's going to go away. But this is a community where you're not going to drift back to the normal, right? Where the version of you who makes amazing decisions and sticks with it is your new normal, right? So I don't know. Megan, anything you want to add for someone who's kind of sitting there, sitting on the fence, just thinking about things right now?
Gosh. Well, I'd say get off the fence. Make some
True
decisions,
story.
Yeah, it's like get off the fence, It's like, gosh, join
It's
Iconic
uncomfortable on the
365,
fence. Get off
or
the
something.
fence.
It's like, yeah, it's just kind of like, where do you want to start? I mean, there's so many great
Yeah.
directions that you could go right now. And so if
Yeah.
you feel like you need to, or I mean, gosh, again, wherever you feel like you want to start, but it's like, get on the inside, get into Iconic 365 if you need to spend some more time with yourself. And you want to live more of that iconic life. And right now, maybe you're even drawing a blank saying, what is the iconic life for myself? I don't know. Go explore that with
Yeah.
Hannah. You want to get curious about wealth and like, growing that even more. Well, I mean, you can still do that there too. And then also come learn about WeFi. I mean, again, like that wave, that wave's definitely waving right now. And so,
It's
like that
cresting.
wave's coming
Yeah.
into shore. So I would get on that party wave because it is it's, like that. We're talking big wave surfing, like out in Pipeline or something. But
And it's a whole party wave, like you said. It's so much
it,
fun up here, you guys. Come on and join us.
it's so
Like,
much more fun. Yeah. So it's like
so
get
much
off the
fun.
fence and like figure something
Yeah.
out, make some decisions.
Thailand, here we come, right?
Oh yeah. I'll hang out with you. I'll save you a spot in Thailand.
Just saying. Just saying. Yeah. I love it. Okay, you guys, thank you, Megan. So you guys, my
Thank you.
hope with this series, the Iconic Wealth series, is a simple one, right? It's that more women and men as well, but again, women is where we kind of are pinpointing right
Mhm.
now, because
Yep.
that's who comes to my table, right? But that more women feel informed, empowered, expanded, and invited into these conversations around wealth, around opportunities, around stewardship, around creating the iconic future of themselves, right? That we are shaping, right? We're doing it together. Because wealth in the hands of good women and men create ripple effects far beyond what we can see. So if today's conversation, sparks something in you, stay close. Share this episode, send it to a friend, invite them to our next one tomorrow, but come and join us inside of this conversation, inside of these spaces, right? Because these conversations really do matter. So stay curious, stay discerning, and make a decision, right? And until next time, keep paying attention, keep expanding, and keep moving like the iconic women that you guys already are. We'll see you in the next conversation. Bye.
See ya.